Report card. Who be the baddest? Show me the greatest. She be the illest. Who be the maddest? Rock popo. Report card. Rock popo. Report card. Oh, rock popo. Report card. Show your report.
Now looks like I'm gonna go solo for this episode of Mid-Season Report Card, and we're gonna go over the teams and kind of break down how each team is doing and give them a letter grade. So we'll jump right into it, and we're going to start with the AFC East. The AFC East right now, it's pretty much the Dolphins and then everybody else. The Patriots, Jets, and Bills, all 2 wins or less. So we'll start with the Dolphins. Dolphins, I gave a C. They're sitting at 5-4. And what more appropriate grade for 500 Mike than a middle-of-the-road C? Right now, he's got wins against guys he shouldn't be beating and losses to ones that he probably should. He's done a great job. Devin Tua, it looks like Tua's probably going to end up with a superstar development after this season ends. But he's got to fix the run game. Right now, that's really what's holding him back. But at 5-4, he's at the top of the AFC East. I would have thought maybe Woods would be there. But right now, it's Mike. So Mike with the C. Next up, we got Woods at 2-5. He beat the Texans by 7 and Washington by 1. Neither of those teams are blowing guys out. Washington still doesn't even have a win, and he almost won that one if his fullback doesn't fall down on a possession catch short of the first down. Just hard to have any confidence in this team right now. And then on top of that, he gave up his 2022 first for Ronald Jones and Carlton Davis, and he still can't run or stop the pass. And right now, that's looking like it's going to be a high first. So I gave him a D-. That roster's just too good to be sitting at 2-5. We saw Woods win a couple AFC North divisions last cycle. Hopefully he can get it turned around, but right now it's not looking good. Next up is the Patriots. Patriots sitting at 2-6 with Fig, giving him a D. Kind of like the Jets and KJ. Not much was expected from the Patriots and Fig, and he still underdelivered. Started with a nice win over Miami to open the season, or I guess the new cycle. And it's just been downhill since. And I think a lot of it has to do with some questionable roster moves that have hurt, with the worst of them being J.C. Jackson, moving him. I know he got NYT's first, and that's a tough one to give up a star corner like that. And then finally, at 1-6, we have the Jets and KJ. 1-6, not really a surprise. His only win was against Fig, so it's a division win, which is nice. He picked up C.J. Henderson for Spooky's first. He got Austin Hooper for his second, which seems to be helping a little bit. But he really needs to address the halfback situation. And when he was at his best with the Steelers, it was when he drafted that halfback and really made Raider fan unhappy because he took the guy he wanted. But that halfback turned KJ into a guy that almost made a playoff run. So I gave him a D. We'll see if KJ can turn it around. Next up, let's go to the AFC North, which is my division, and I'm gonna just give myself an A+ right now. Normally I'm a little harder on myself grading, but 9-0, second in points for, first in points against. First 4 games were fairly easy, wasn't too tough. But 4 out of the last 5 wins were against teams with winning records: the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Steelers, and the Bengals. And the biggest thing I think contributing to that is 31 interceptions. Next highest is 24. So 7 more than the next highest. And then on top of that, tied for 4th in sacks and 2nd in fumbles. So the defense really getting the ball back to the offense and getting enough done on offense to stay 9-0. So I gave myself an A+ for that. Next up is the Ravens. And I gave QP an A. He's sitting at 5-2. Big wins over D-Muse, Prime, and Meats. But those losses to Clink and Monty keep it from being an A+. The offense and defense, both kind of middle of the road, but I think that'll change as he gets more used to this team. He's coming from the Lions and going from the Lions to the Ravens is a big adjustment in how you're going to play. And he's still sitting at 5-2. So I gave him an A. Third in the division, I got Monty at 6-2. I also gave him an A. His only losses were to the Steelers and the Browns. The defense for the Bengals is ranked 2nd in points allowed. He's top 5 in rushing, passing, and total yards. It's a young team that's just going to get better, and he's already got them in the playoffs, so they're going to just continue to get better, and I think that's going to be a really good team. So I have him with an Steelers at 4th place in the division at 5-3 are going to get a B. It's tough to give a last place team an A, but it probably should be. He's top 5 in points and points allowed, and his losses have only been to the Raiders, which D-Muse is sitting at the top of the or close to the top of the AFC West, and then Monty and myself, all winning teams. The only winning team that he's beat, though, is the Packers, so that kind of holds him back a little bit. But he's beaten the guys he should, and right now that AFC North looking really tough with 5-3 sitting in last place. Next up is the AFC South. We'll start with the Colts in prime, 5-3, just came off a big win against the Titans. The Colts team is not that good, and he has them contending in the South. So I give him a B+ at 5-3. With Figs' 2023 pick, his first-round pick, I expect him to go after a quarterback, maybe package it for something to get one this season. Because if he can get rid of Wentz and replace him with something better, then this team immediately gets a lot better. Wentz, I think, is really holding him back. Seen a couple throws that seem to hurt him, and I think that's going to be his main target, is finding his quarterback, his Frank George of this cycle. Next up, we have the Titans. Gave him an A, 6-2. I don't know that anyone expected this, but he's at the top of the AFC South. Losses to the Colts and Jags hurt because they're in his division, and now they're both only one game back. But the schedule stays pretty easy. He should be able to get a playoff spot. And, I mean, coming into this season after kind of getting beat pretty bad with the Patriots, he switches to the Titans, and you can see what a difference Derrick Henry makes as he's sitting at the top of the AFC South now. All right, then we have Matt and the Jags. Give him a C-. 4-3. He's a tough one to figure out. There's few guys in the league that seem to torpedo themselves more. He tells you what he does to win and then decides to do something different. So this season or cycle, he takes a team with a great rookie halfback and decides he'd rather be the 29th best passing offense. But it looks like he may be turning the corner. He's got 3 straight wins, and I think he's kind of coming around to the run game a little bit more, and you can see in the results. But for now, I give him a C- just because he's doing it to himself. And then we have ZZ and the Texans. Gave him a D+, 3-6, but one of the wins was a sim he just had against Field. Beating Miami, though, was a quality win for now. We'll see if Mike can continue to play well, but for now, that looks like a quality win. This is just another situation where I think a team overpaid with their future. Ross has a bunch of yards. He's near the top, but, I mean, are you trying to break records or win games? Because right now you got a lot of receiving yards, but it's not turning into wins. So we'll see going forward what happens there. But that pick looks like it's going to be a high one, and that's going to hurt to just get John Ross out of it. All right, moving to the AFC West. We'll start with the Chargers. Gave Meats a B+, 5-3. He's 6th in points for and against, so really balanced there. His only losses were the Browns, the Ravens, and the Eagles, so all good teams. He doesn't really have a bad loss, and he holds the tiebreaker over the Raiders because he beat D-Muse earlier. He's spreading the ball out nice. He's got 4 guys with 20-plus receptions. He's not really stuck on that one guy like a lot of guys are, which makes him a little more difficult to stop, and you can see that reflected in his 6th in points for. But I give him a B+ because that's a really good roster, and should probably be a little better than 5-3. Next up is the Raiders. I gave D-Muse an A. Same record as Meats, but he's doing it with the Raiders roster. He's top 10 in points for and against. He just needs to figure out how to get Josh Jacobs going. He's only got 4.7 yards per carry. He's had a fairly tough schedule so far, but that doesn't let up very much in the second half. So he's going to have to kind of keep this pace if he wants to take that top spot in the AFC West. He does still have 1 remaining against Meats. Then we have the Chiefs, 2-6 for Coop. I've got him at a D-. It's one of the best teams to start, and you're only 22nd in points scored. That offense should at least be putting up some points, even if the defense can't stop anybody. He's had a tough schedule, so that can be partially to blame. Noel, D-Muse twice, Grams, Meats, Spades, and Monty still remaining. So it's not like it's going to get a ton easier. That's 6-7 games of the remaining ones that are going to be pretty tough. And I think trading that first for Kareem Hunt may hurt a little bit later. He did want to run him back, but that first I don't think he expected to be as high as it looks like it may be. And then we got Colt in Denver with the Broncos. I give him a C. 3-5. Not a great record. And more importantly, I don't think he ever really addressed the halfback and the quarterback situation he's got in Denver. He did bring in a nice defender. I think he got some picks, but hopefully in the draft he can fix that halfback and quarterback situation. For whatever reason, Javonte Williams, he's not really the typical Colt style halfback where he's throwing to him a bunch. We saw what he did with Kamara last cycle, and I don't think Williams is that guy. But beating Matt was a pretty big win, so maybe he can build off of that. All right, so that's it for the AFC. And we're trying to move this a little quicker since it is just me. We're not going to take a lot of time with these guys. So next up, moving to the NFC, we've got the Eagles. Dump and the Eagles, 5-4. I gave Dump a B-. For anybody else, this would probably be higher. But I feel like Dump has set a higher standard for regular season than 5-4. So I gave him a B-. As usual, top 3 offense. Both running and passing, he's effective. But also, as usual, bottom half defense. For whatever reason, Dump not able to play a lot of defense. I don't know if it's because he scores too fast on offense or he just has trouble playing defense. The losses aren't bad. Dan, Faz, D-Muse, and Grams. But it's still 4 losses out of 9 games. That's tough for to see with Dump. Usually he's got a really good start. So 5-4, kind of surprising. I think he's in 3rd in the division, depending on how the rest of these games shake out this week. But he does have Fig's first-round pick, which is nice, and that'll help that Eagles team that already has 3 first-round picks. Next up, we have Grams. I'm giving Grams a B at 4-3. I think it's time to stop comparing Grams to past Grams. I think the Grams we have now is just the way it is. And right now he's the bottom half of the league on both sides of the ball. He's got the only freight train halfback that's not dominating, and all we've heard about is how overpowered freight train is, and he's sitting there at less than 5.5 yards per carry with Zeke. Just not getting it done. So a little disappointing there. He does have wins over Dump and Pauly, which looks good for the division, sitting at 4-3 and the interdivision wins. He's just got to keep it up because, Pauly and Dump are both going to win their games. Then with the Giants and Pauly, I gave him an A at 6-3. Pretty amazing what can happen when you're not trying to get the top pick. But having Finn's and ZZ's first make tanking pretty unnecessary. He's playing really well, and having the future in a good spot makes this an easy A. He's going to have probably 2 top 10 picks, maybe top 5 picks. So that's pretty good. And all he had to do was swap John Ross in his own first. That's a good spot where he's got them at, and really interested to see where he goes in the draft if he decides to stick with Daniel Jones or maybe build a little more on defense. And then we have Washington in that division, 0-8. I gave him an F-. I don't know what's below an F-, but whatever it is, that's what DW gets. There's no excuse to be this bad with this team. Washington was going to be a top 5, maybe top 10 team. I don't know. I just can't believe this team could be 0-8. Bottom 3rd in offense and defense. I don't know how with that defense you're in the bottom 3rd of the league. It's just inexplicable. I think he's playing like they're the Jets, but it's not the Jets, and he's not adapting very well. I know he's got a lot going on, so maybe he turns it around, but right now just F- and whatever's below that because it looks bad. All right, so moving to the NFC North, we've got the Packers. This is Noel leading the division. He's at 5-3, doing it with the 4th-ranked defense. I gave him a B. Would have been higher if he didn't seem to be taking a little bit of a step back from the Seahawks and in a fairly weak division. I just don't know what's going on with the offense. Right now he's like ranked 21st in offense with the Packers, so that's kind of surprising to see, but he's fortunate he's got a weak division, so he shouldn't have much trouble staying on top of it for this season. We'll see what happens with the cap and next season. It's going to be really interesting to watch and see what he does with that cap because I know everybody's saying he's not going to be able to keep Devontae Adams, but you got to think he wants to. All right, next up is going to be the Bears. I gave Finns a C. He's sitting at 2-7, but 9 games into the first season of the new restarted cycle, Finns has already tied his win total from the last 2 seasons as the Broncos. So got to give him a C there. He doesn't have draft picks. As a guy that likes to build his roster, and he doesn't like his quarterback. It'll be interesting to see what he does going forward with this team. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of guys coming after Justin Fields. I'm personally going to be coming after Fields more than likely with Baker Mayfield in a deal. So it'll be interesting to see if he wants to go the route of a rookie and try to see if he can hit something, or take Baker Mayfield and maybe some picks, or we'll see what he does there. But he doesn't have his own pick, and that's got to be hurting Fins a little bit. And then we have the Vikings. Two-Step gets a D at 1-6. Last cycle, he was competing for the AFC North, at least making some pushes. I think one season, the last one, he even made the playoffs. So I expected a little better than 1-6 to start this new cycle. The division isn't that tough, but 30th or worst in offense and defense just isn't good enough. And then rounding out the NFC North, we have Clink and the Lions. I gave him an incomplete. He hasn't really played most of his games. He's 2-6. But he did beat the Ravens before he left, and the computer has Goff in a good spot for an upgrade. Kind of unclear how Clink's going to feel about that, because I know he likes to build his team, and Goff's not exactly cheap, but as a 74 overall, he probably won't be too hard to re-sign for fairly cheap. And then he's got multiple firsts in the next two drafts, which turn out to be the Rams picks. Those are going to be decent picks, and that has him set up for the future. So I think this division could end up being between Clink and Knoll at some point. All right, NFC South, big division. After the draft, everybody had this as either the best or the second best division in the SML, and so far it's pretty much played like we expected. We'll start at the top with the Saints, and I gave Future an A+. He's sitting at 6-1, and we can officially start the Is Future Back talk again from last cycle, because right now he's looking like the best team in the AFC South. He's sitting at 6-1. We got the number 1 offense, number 10 defense, and it's one of the toughest divisions in the league. And like I said, he's 6-1 in it. And finally, we have a Saints user that knows how to use Michael Thomas, and you can see he's reaping the benefits because he's got the best record that we've seen out of a Saints owner in a while. But next up in that division, we've got Dan and the Falcons. Gave him an A as well, 5-2. This record with the Falcons, and that includes wins over Faz, Dump, and Doinkface, that's pretty impressive. The defense playing like top 10 defense, but I think the offense might hold him back. You know, he got rid of Ridley. He got rid of, or not got rid of, but didn't get a running back. And right now it seems like if somebody takes Pitts away, he may be in trouble. Pitts seems to be his go-to weapon, and I don't know if in the playoffs that's gonna work. Next up in that division, we've got the Panthers and Faz. Gave him a B, 6-2. Like Dump, this grade is more of a reflection of expectations. You don't expect Faz to be 6-2 and really what could be third place in the division, depending on how this next week goes. He's got a top 10 offense and defense, but the losses to Future and Dan really hurt in the division that looks like it's going to go down to the wire. And for all the talk of how good Carolina was before the team draft, this lack of a quarterback just really seems to be hurting him. He's still putting up decent numbers, but 2 losses, and a lot of it has to be on Love missing wide open throws. And then rounding out that division, we've got the Buccaneers and Doinkface. I give him a D+. 4-4, arguably the best roster in the division. He's already 2 games back from third place, regardless of how it shakes out. Started off hot and then lost 3 of his last 4 games. The second half scheduling won't be forgiving. It's a pretty tough schedule, just based off even just the 3 guys he's still got in his division. But with 3 firsts in the upcoming draft after some of the moves he made in the offseason, I assume he's going to try and find a quarterback and not wait till after the second Brady regression. But this season, it's a D+. I think he expected to be better than 4-4 with that roster, especially after how well he played Faz at the end of the last season in that playoff game when he had the Raiders. All right, last division, and it's going to be the NFC West, and we've got the Cardinals at the top, 6-3. Pretty much running away with the division. It's pretty weak. NYT seems to be pulling away, kind of as expected. Top 8 in offense and defense. Still got some tough games left, but not enough to really make an impact on this division, I think. And I kind of expect this to be one of the first that gets clinched. He's had breakout games now with, what was it? Isaiah Simmons got one. Rondale Moore got a dev bump. So he's getting the dev bumps. And and he's completing them. So he's turning an already good Cardinals roster into an even better one. Then we have the Seahawks coming in at 3-5. I gave Spooky a C. This is kind of opposite from the Cardinals and the Washington situation, or not Cardinals, the Eagles and the Washington situation. I think this is the team that's actually surpassing expectations. I know he's only 3-5, but unlike Washington and Death Wish, I think whereas that was a bad fit for the way Death Wish plays, I think this is a perfect fit for Spooky's style, and I expect him to improve as we go if he can keep his picks. He's got to stop moving his picks, but if he can keep them, I think he can build that team into something that'll make him at least kind of push NYT for that division title. Then we've got the Rams. Give the Rams an incomplete. Kind of like the Lions. He hasn't played all his games. He just had a sim loss to the Texans. But there's definitely some potential there after seeing him win against the Giants. It's one of the more unpredictable divisions, so I could see him making a run. The problem is going to be he's got no first for the next 2 seasons. Those belong to Clink and the Lions, so won't be able to build much, at least not with his first-round picks. But maybe these drafts will be deep like we saw the first 2 seasons, and he can still get something going there. And then the last team is Tiny and the 49ers. I gave him an F. He asked for it in chat, so he gave him his F. 1-7. That's just another record that kind of jumps out. He had a great roster. It's just not playing great. And then to top it off, he's got no first-round picks for 2 seasons. About the only bright spot is Elijah Mitchell looks to be something that he can use and develop going forward. I think he's his leading runner and receiver. So we'll see if he can get something going with Mitchell, maybe get some breakout games and some dev bumps and get him to where he can be something like the running back he had in Seattle last cycle to kind of turn things around. It's not a tough division with Spooky and Field, and he should be able to compete, especially even with NYT. I mean, Tiny's got the best roster, maybe second best roster in the division, so he should be able to be better than 1-7, and that's going to be good enough for an F. But coming in right around 20 minutes, that's going to be this episode of Mid-Season Report Card. Thanks for listening, guys, and let's see if some teams can improve their grades. All right. Enjoy the second half of the season.
Report card. Who be the baddest? Show me the greatest. She be the illest.